Hello. Welcome to another episode of Andrea Speaks TV. I'm your host, Andrea, back to bring you news and commentary you can use. Listen, y'all, you see the picture on the screen. Listen, you all know from time to time I share world news with you, not to scare you, but to let you know, hey, this is what's happening in other parts of the world, and to hopefully get you to start thinking and ask the question, could something like this possibly happen here in the US or whatever country you live in? So let's go ahead and get into it, y'all. This information comes from NBC News, and the title of the article, as you see on the screen, says that a march against inflation turns up the political heat in France. All right, you all be sure to like this video, share this video, and also subscribe to the channel. I want to say thank you all so much for your support. Listen, according to NBC News, now this comes out of Paris, France, thousands of protesters, including France's newly crowned Nobel Literature Laureate, the article says, piled into the streets of Paris on Sunday in a show of anger against the bite of rising prices and cranking up pressure on the government of President Emmanuel Macron. Okay, so y'all, inflation, rising prices, doesn't that sound a lot like what's happening here in the United States? Listen, the article goes on by saying the March for Wage Increases and Other Demands was organized by left-wing opponents of Macron and lit the fuse on what promises to be an uncomfortable week for his centrist government. Okay. Also, the article shared that transport strikes called for Tuesday threatened to dovetail with wage strikes that have already hobbled fuel refineries and depots, sparking chronic gasoline shortages that are fraying nerves among millions of workers and other motorists dependent on their vehicles, with giant lines forming at gas stations. All of this is happening in Paris, France, y'all. Listen, the article says Macron's government is also on the defensive in Parliament, where it lost its majority in legislative elections in June. Now, that is making it much harder, the article says, for his centrist alliance to implement his domestic agenda against strengthened opponents, and parliamentary discussion of the government's budget plan for next year is proving particularly difficult. Okay. Um, let's see. The article also goes on to say that organizers claim that more than 140,000 protesters marched. The Paris police said that they didn't have an immediate estimate for the size of the dense flag waving crowd that filled squares and streets. Okay. The article also says there were a few outbreaks of vandalism on the margins, with garbage bins, set on fire and bank machines smashed. Okay. Riot police tried to keep order. Okay. Demonstrating at Mélenchon's side was French author Annie Ernaux, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature this year. Organizers called it a march against the high cost of living and climate inaction. Okay, what are your thoughts on that, y'all? Okay, again, organizers called it, and I quote, a march against the high cost of living and climate inaction, as well as calling for massive investment against the climate crisis. They also demanded emergency measures against high prices, including freezes in the cost of energy. Okay, you all know I've covered right here on the channel talking about the energy crisis going on in Europe. So they also, let me read this again. It says, organizers called it, and I quote, a march against the high cost of living and climate inaction, end quote, as well as calling for massive investment against the climate crisis. They also demanded emergency measures against high prices. Listen to this, y'all. They demanded emergency measures against high prices, including freezes in the cost of energy, essential goods, and rents, and for greater taxation of windfall profits. What are your thoughts on this, y'all? A lawmaker of the left-wing party called the march, and I quote, a demonstration of strength to show, here's another quote, that another world is finally possible if we are all together and all united. Okay, another world. What do y'all think about that? Another marcher, retired railway worker, said, what we want, and here's a quote, he was quoted as saying, what we want is for everyone to live decently with the purchasing power they had before. Okay. So you all let me know your thoughts. Again, in Paris, France, this news comes out of Paris, France, that the people are taking to the streets in a march against inflation. And what the article also mentioned as climate inaction, they're calling for many different measures. Again, the article cites that they are demanding emergency measures against high prices, including freezes in the cost of energy, essential goods, and rents, and for greater taxation of windfall profits. You all let me know your thoughts on this topic. Do you think something like this could possibly happen here in the United States or in the country that you live in? Is this something that the people should do or should not do? Let me know your thoughts. As always, thank you all so much for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your support, and stay tuned for more news and commentary you can use right here on